June 7th, 1995. It's Game 1 of the NBA Finals with Orlando Magic playing defending champions, the Houston Rockets. The Magic lead by 3 with just over 10 seconds left in the fourth quarter. The Rockets have to go for an intentional foul, and Nick Anderson, a usually dependable player from the line, steps up. But his first attempt cannons off the rim, falling way short. He spins away in frustration and tries to compose himself with a thump of his chest. He lines up his second attempt, and it's the same story. Lucky for Anderson, he's pretty much immediately fouled again and gets another chance to seal the result for his side. His teammates rally around him, urging him on with some words of encouragement. But his third attempt is too long and cannons off the back of the rim. Again he spins, this time in sync with the collective gasp from the thousands of Magic fans in the arena. Anderson smiles though, and he quickly puts up his fourth free throw and misses yet again. The Rockets claim the ball, take a timeout, and then hit a three-pointer with 1.6 seconds remaining to send the game to overtime. The Rockets then soon win and end up sweeping the Magic 4-0 in the series. The free throw is in theory one of the easiest things to successfully pull off in basketball. It's a shot aspiring and professional players will make hundreds of times in practice each week. So why could Anderson not even hit one of 4 free throws when it really mattered? Simple, he choked. We hear of athletes choking all the time in sports, but what really is it? Well, choking is when an athlete puts in a suboptimal performance when under pressure. They perform far lower than their normal standards when it really counts. But why does this happen? Well, when it boils down to it, choking happens because an athlete overthinks. At a time when the mind needs to be empty and the athlete needs to run on autopilot, the pressure of the moment opens the floodgate to all kinds of unnecessary thoughts. This turns that skill that was once fluid into something clunky. The thing that they've done a million times before becomes the hardest thing to do in the entire world. For Anderson, early in the game, he was just playing his game. He was just doing his thing. He would have been thinking about the shots to make, his movement for plays, and how to block opponents, but he wouldn't have been overthinking. But when stepping to the line, when it's just you and the bucket, with thousands of eyeballs in the arena and millions on you at home, it's hard not to overthink. The usual action-related thoughts that happen moment to moment, like make this shot, end up mutating into judgment-related thoughts like, what if I miss this? And the second the first one of these thoughts pops into your head, it essentially opens the door for hundreds of such thoughts. But there are some athletes who seemingly never allow this to happen. Why is this? Well, they're equipped in the most underrated skill that athletes need: the ability to handle pressure by not overthinking. Let me repeat that. The most composed athletes in the world are highly skilled in the ability to perform under pressure by not overthinking. Great, but how is that even possible? Well, as said, it's a skill. So this means it can be built up over time. And there's 3 things that you can do to build this skill so the next time you face some pressure, you don't shit your pants. And the first is to get out of your head. What do I mean by this? Well, the overthinking that leads to choking is the result of the athlete no longer just focusing on externals and instead focusing on internals. So instead of just thinking about taking this shot, they start thinking, okay, what's going to happen if I make or miss this shot? The calmest athletes will say time and time again that when they're facing a high pressure moment, nothing is really going through their mind. It's empty other than thoughts related to the task at hand. They remain completely detached from the context of the big moment, so they don't worry about how much time is left on the clock, the fact that they've got thousands of people screaming at them, or the fact that if they make this shot, they're going to win the game. A great example of this was Eric Dyer during England's penalty shootout win against Colombia in 2018. England were notorious for choking during penalty shootouts, losing their previous 5 during major knockout competitions. But Dyer had a weird, unintentional strategy. He managed to detach himself from this penalty psychological burden that came with being English. He said in a recent interview that he didn't feel attached to England's penalty disasters because he grew up in Portugal. So for him placing the ball down to win the match, he felt completely calm and relaxed. He managed to get out of his head because he was able to quickly dissociate himself from his country's previous failures. And that emptiness in his mind led him to scoring the vital kick. Another thing top athletes do to handle pressure and stop the flow of overthinking is to anticipate correctly. Now, what I mean by this is something called anticipatory attitudes. I read about this in Matt Fitzgerald's awesome book, How Bad You Want It, which looks into the psychological research behind how endurance athletes push beyond their limits. And key to any sport, but especially endurance sports, is that you're only going to get to the top or do your best if you're able to keep pushing through discomfort and improve your relationship with perceived effort. Because when the going gets tough, what most of us are tempted to do is start allowing the gremlins to start telling us to stop because it's too hard, uncomfortable, or painful. This is what's called suppression attitudes, and these make us crumble, freeze, or fall apart under pressure. In anticipating something is too difficult or painful, this again leads us to overthinking. We start worrying too much about the aches and pains that we have, how tired we are, or the fact that people are relying on us. But the very best manage to overcome this by saying to themselves, this will hurt, but it will be worth it. Essentially engaging in acceptance attitudes. They simply accept the situation and all aspects of the challenge they're facing. They acknowledge it's going to be difficult and that there's a lot riding on this moment, but to them, that's fine. All they need to do is push on despite any resistance or hesitation. We see this in someone like Sir Chris Hoy, who won 6 Olympic cycling golds. In an interview about his intense sessions aimed at increasing his lactic acid threshold, he said, "It's the worst pain imaginable. You feel as if you're dying. You're feeling sick and you writhe around in a world of pain until you can form a fetal position, which you stay in for 15 minutes thinking you can't go on." During many of these sessions, Hoy would throw up, but what got him through was engaging in these acceptance attitudes. He acknowledged it would be painful, but the pain would be worth it, so that come the Olympic finals he raced in, he would be able to handle the pressure and go harder than any of his opponents, no matter the circumstances. And this also touches on the last thing athletes can do to not overthink when facing pressure, and that's to just expect the unexpected. This literally means that they practice so much that come the big match or big pressurized moment, that they can just run on autopilot. They can take thinking out of the equation so much because of muscle memory, the idea that they can just perform the skill because their body has been trained to do it almost instinctively. There's often no time to think, they just do. Think of someone like Michael Jordan. The hundreds of thousands of practice shots he took meant that he was never fazed to take the game-winning shot. There would be nothing to think about because the situation was familiar in terms of how to move his body, irrespective of where he was on the court and how opponents were trying to defend him. Being in those situations before builds up a mental script that your mind will follow without you even having to try. Sure, sometimes some of Jordan's last-second shots hit the rim and didn't make their way into the basket, but because Jordan was so calm and so at ease when taking those shots, the ones that he didn't make can't be chokes. They're just unlucky. And that's a big difference athletes need to be aware of. A choke is only a choke if you actually choked. So if you know that you missed or failed because you were terrified, super nervous, or you overthought the situation, then yeah, you choked. But if you missed or failed because luck wasn't on your side that day, that's fine. All you need to do is just keep practicing, keep putting the reps in, and over time, you'll develop that skill of not overthinking when the pressure is really on.